The wind was screaming across the mountains when Felipe Gomes, 42, saw the SUV flip once, twice, then vanish into a curtain of white, so thick it looked as if the world itself had swallowed it whole. For a split second, he froze on the snowy trail, his breath sharp in his throat, the memory of another accident, the one that took his wife, flashing like lightning behind his eyes. But then instinct surged. He ran. He ran. Even though the blizzard was raging, even though his boots kept sinking into the powder, even though he had no guarantee anyone inside that SUV was still alive, he ran because he knew what it felt like to wait for help that never came, and he refused to let another human being die alone in the cold. Felipe reached the wrecked vehicle just as snow began to bury it. The windows were shattered, the doors warped from the impact, and the bitter daylight was fading under the choking clouds. He pulled at the door until it cracked open, and inside he found a woman, barely conscious, slumped over the steering wheel, her breath trembling in the frozen air. Her name, he would later learn, was Laura Castro, 35, the famously relentless CEO of Castro Logistica. Right now, though, she wasn't powerful. She wasn't polished. She was cold, shivering, and dangerously pale. Felipe didn't waste a second. He lifted her carefully into his arms, feeling how light and fragile she seemed despite her reputation. The storm was worsening. He knew he couldn't get her down the trail safely, so he headed toward the only shelter nearby, an old logging cabin, abandoned years ago, but still standing. He had used it once while hiking with his 10-year-old son, Teo, and he prayed it hadn't collapsed under winter's weight. Be wise, a miracle. The cabin was still there. He pushed inside and laid Laura down against a bundle of old quilts. He managed to coax a flame into life in the old metal stove. The room slowly warmed. Laura blinked awake in the thin afternoon light. Felipe offered her water. Relieved to find her pulse steadying, she watched him, confused, vulnerable, yet trying to maintain some shard of composure. Felipe draped the only thick blanket he found across her shoulders. As she thawed, her eyes softened, not polished, not calculating. These were simply human eyes, exhausted and scared. Afternoon became early evening. Laura tried to sit up, but the cold had settled into her bones. She winced, her breath hitching. Felipe moved closer, concerned she might faint again. She looked at him, really looked at him this time, seeing beyond the flannel shirt and the tired lines on his face. That was when she whispered, barely audible over the wind rattling the cabin door, "Can I slip under your blanket?" Her voice didn't carry seduction, carried fear, fragile need, human truth. Felipe hesitated, remembering the cold sheets of the hospital. But this was survival. Humans needed warmth. So he nodded gently, opened the blanket, and let her lean into him. Her shoulder trembled against his chest. The warmth between them grew slowly, first uncomfortable, then necessary, then strangely comforting. Mara didn't speak for a long time. When she finally did, her words spilled out quietly. She admitted she wasn't used to receiving kindness without a price, and confessed she hadn't taken a real day off in 12 years since her father died. Felipe simply told her about Teo, about the small life he built after everything fell apart, and how grief forced him to learn simplicity and the power of helping without expectations. The storm raged outside, but inside the cabin, something softened. Something thawed between two people who had been freezing in their own very different ways. Hours passed. Laura began to breathe more evenly. Her head eventually rested against his shoulder, her heartbeat slow and steady. When the blizzard finally eased into a bright, still afternoon, Felipe decided it was safe enough to try to signal for help. Using an emergency flare, he fired it into the gray sky. Within an hour, a rescue team spotted them. Laura was taken to a nearby medical station and Felipe followed. The next day, when the light was gentler, Laura sought him out. She looked different, still polished, but changed. She thanked him not just for saving her life, but for giving her something she hadn't felt in years. Safety that came without conditions. She asked if she could meet Teo. He nodded gratefully. The following Saturday, Laura Castro arrived at Felipe's small, rented cabin in a modest rental car. Felipe opened the door, and she stood there, holding a small, brightly wrapped box. "Hello, Felipe," she said. "I wanted to meet Teo." "Felipe Navid. Come in, Laura." It's never a bad time for that. Teo was sitting at a small wooden table, drawing a detailed map. "Teo, this is Laura," Felipe said. "The woman I told you about." "Hi," Teo said simply, pushing the cinnamon rolls closer to her. "You need to eat. Dad says food helps you get warm when you're frozen." Laura smiled genuinely, accepting a roll. She placed the box on the table, a professional-grade set of drawing pencils and a leather-bound sketchbook. Teo immediately opened it and started sketching Laura. Laura spent the next 2 hours not talking business, but listening to Felipe talk about his late wife's love for the mountains, the quiet courage it took to raise Teo, and his work as a freelance conservation consultant. Later, she turned to him, her face serious. "Felipe, I can't go back to the way things were. I am still Laura Castro, but I don't want to be that Laura Castro anymore. I'm taking a real break, a real second chance." She then presented him with a proposition. She proposed funding a significant conservation and trail maintenance nonprofit, managed by Felipe, using her resources and his deep local knowledge. "I need your expertise, Felipe," she said, meeting his eyes. "I want to invest in that world now. The quiet, honest one. Will you help me build it?" He smiled. "It sounds like a worthy adventure, Laura. Teo and I would be happy to help you." The conservation nonprofit, named Mountain Compass, became the tangible expression of their second chance. Laura focused on securing ethical funding and organization, while Felipe, with Teo, directed the fieldwork, restoring critical trails and implementing sustainable resource plans. Their work required them to be together constantly. Slowly, the professional boundary began to blur, much like the process that had saved Laura's life. It happened in small moments. Her genuine laughter when Teo spilled hot chocolate, Felipe bringing her tea and sitting quietly beside her when she slipped into old workaholic habits, and Laura confiding in him about her deep-seated fear of failure. Their emotional connection deepened into a mature love, rooted in shared values and mutual healing. One crisp autumn evening, after a long day of planting native saplings, they were sitting by the fire pit. Teo was asleep. Laura turned to Felipe, her eyes reflecting the firelight. "I've been in boardrooms overlooking every major city, but being here with you and Teo, it feels like the only home I've ever truly known." Felipe reached out and gently took her hand. "I thought I lost everything when my wife died. You showed me that saving a life means more than just pulling someone out of the snow. It means letting them into your world, letting them help you rebuild." He leaned in, and the kiss was quiet, steady, and filled with the profound weight of a future they were choosing together. They weren't just partners in conservation. They were partners in life, two broken souls finding quiet wholeness in the mountains. If this story of second chances, quiet heroism, and finding love in the most unexpected place touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with a friend who needs a reminder about the power of kindness, and subscribe to the Kindness Journal for more true stories that highlight humanity and hope. Also, we'd love to hear from you. Comment below and tell us, what is the most unexpected act of kindness you've ever witnessed?